So I want to talk a little bit about diapers and how diapers can kind of be restricting when we're trying to position a baby for developmentally appropriate growth. So a lot of times the diaper ends up being across the thigh here. And when it's across the thigh, it kind of prevents the baby's legs from becoming fully flexed or, flexed to the hips. So a way to get around that is if we make sure that we pull the diaper up much farther in the back. And then when we strap the diaper across, it's not covering the thigh. And now I can get that full flexion without the diaper being the way. And also for our really small babies who tend to have bigger bellies, it helps to have the diaper tight here at the baby's butt, but loose around the abdomen. So we don't need it to be super tight here. That doesn't really help keep the shishi in. It's just going to make it harder for them to breathe. So by keeping it loose here, but snug at the groin, that'll allow us to have good positioning while allowing the baby to breathe well. So the next thing I want to talk about is, let's say your baby has a PIV or a UVC, UAC, where you want to be able to visualize the toes, for example. So let's say they have an IV in their leg. We can still strap the arms and give them containment here. And then we can just flex the one foot and leave this leg out. That's just fine. But if you notice what's happening, even though we have one leg out, the fabric here is still encouraging the baby's legs to be flexed at the hip. So we're still getting a little bit of flexion here, and that's really good. If you have a UAC and you want both of their legs to be out, that's just fine. Again, this fabric can still allow for a little bit of flexion at the hips. So we can still kind of encourage that while still visualizing their feet or their toes. And if you notice this, I have this actually a little bit too low. I'm going to pull it up and fix that real quick. The other thing you can do, if you want to try to provide a little bit of more flexion and a little bit more something for the baby to kick against while still covering their toe or allowing their toes to be visualized, you can fold this blanket back and just do kind of part of their feet. You can kind of get creative there and just give them something to kick against, but you can still see their toes. So this way or under the legs works just fine. So the same would go if you have an IV in the arm and you want to be able to visualize this arm. It's okay to leave the arm out, in this direction. Maybe you want to keep it away from their face. You could go up this way if that's, for whatever reason, if that's what you want. And then still provide containment here. So still completely doable with umbilical lines, PICC lines, IVs. So let's say the baby is under phototherapy. We can still provide quite a bit of containment while exposing the baby to some light. So here, we won't use the arms. We'll leave the arms out. The baby is still contained here. They have a nice snug nest. And then depending on how much coverage you want, you could do, fold the blanket here, make it a little bit smaller and fold it here, or make it even smaller than that and fold it here. You know, so depending on how much coverage or exposure, I mean, you would want, you can get kind of creative with that. So the baby still has quite a bit of containment, because I know our babies under phototherapy tend to get pretty fussy. So that allows for lots of light exposure. So another feature here is, let's say, you know, baby's having a procedure done, and you want to be able to cover their light or their eyes from the light so that you don't have that bright light on them. You can fold the top part of this down and cover their eyes. So you got, you know, you can block them a little bit from that bright light while you do what you need to do here. You can also use this to hold the pacifier. Now, this is not to be used like this all the time. It would just be like during a procedure when you need your hands, but you're trying to help the baby hold their pacifier or cover their eyes from the light, and you can do this. Again, don't do this all the time. So let's say you need to place umbilical lines and you want to help secure the arms and legs. You can still do the posy, you know, strap a posy to their arm and tie their arm off, or you can use these wraps to kind of secure their arms and legs. So in this situation, I want the arms above their head. So I can cross, and you want to go below the elbows. So if you go above the elbows, their arms will sneak out. But if you go below the elbows, it'll help hold their arms up. And then you can crisscross so that you have access here without their arms kind of getting in the way. And then same thing here. You would again want to be above the knee. If you're below the knee, the leg will slip out. But if you go above the knee, then you can kind of help strap down the arms and legs, and then you can do umbilical lines or whatever you need to be doing. And the nice thing about this, even like when we do PICC lines and we want to have, you know, one arm exposed, but we still want to provide containment while placing those PICC lines. This is really helpful because our tiny babies, it's not healthy for them to be, you know, picking them up, throwing a blanket under, swaddling them, doing the PICC line, picking them up, taking the blanket out. That's a lot of handling. So this way we can still kind of help hold them secure whilst exposing the one limb that we need, without having to pick them up and put a different blanket under them to swaddle. So another thing that you can do, for whatever reason, if you want to get rid of the nest partially or all the way, you don't have to pick up the baby at all. So much less handling with this. So I'll just lift this side of the blanket up and remove the roll. So I have access on this side. If I want to remove the roll altogether, I can do that without, you know, touching the baby. And I can still provide a little bit of containment, or secure the baby a little bit with this and not with the roll. So in that situation, you know, I can still do this and maybe put it under the baby's bottom, do this side and go under the baby's bottom. So you still got a little bit of containment, not as much as with the roll, you know, in there, but you can still kind of get creative and use these straps to help contain the baby. And then again, when you're ready to put the roll back, make sure their shoulders are at the level of the arm straps or a little bit below, and then lift up the blanket here, put the roll back, make sure the roll goes all the way to their butt. And then kind of help them get back into a nice contained position. Let's say the baby is under humidity. You can still use this wrap while the baby's under humidity. There's no reason necessarily that you shouldn't use it, other than if you're afraid that these straps will get cold. Say when we open the doors to the isolette and kind of cool air comes in, you know, when we open this and maybe cool air comes in, these are kind of wet, and this might get a little cold. So if you prefer not to use it, that's fine. You don't have to use it when the baby's under humidity. However, what you can do is kind of hide it under the nest so that the cool air doesn't get to the straps. And then when you're ready to put it back on the baby, you know, ideally it won't be cold and you won't have that issue. And then you can kind of go back to having that containment. And then the one last thing I want to show you guys is, let's say you're doing kangaroo care with a baby and you are worried about them getting cold. You can just use this blanket. They're already in this blanket. Have the mom pick up the baby just like this, because it's nice. It's separated from the roll, so it's easy to pick up. So you just have the mom pick up the baby here and under the butt, and make sure she has a good hold on the butt so they don't slide. And then you can pick up this way. And then if you want to switch it out with a new, like a warm blanket, once the mom is sitting down and comfortable, you can, or you can just leave it there until the baby's ready to go back to the bed, and then just put them just right back in their nest like this.